Found Us. More podcast, where we want you to know God more deeply, find lasting freedom, discover your destiny and make an eternal difference. Now.
Well, we made it back here. Wow. It's so cool to have this time each week to hang out with you and just kind of like let my hair down, metaphorically speaking. Yeah. and enjoy the time just to spend talking about what's going on through the week. And
yeah.
I
look forward to it.
Yeah. It's kind of like it's the respite for the week. You know,
Yeah.
All the other stuff is all in your head or, physical labor or whatever.
Well, since I've jumped on with you guys, it has been kind of the highlight of the week, and we record on Wednesdays, and it's always something I look forward to. A midweek, I get to hang out with my buddies and chat about life.
Yeah, right.
It's good.
And, it's awesome. It's just funny because we can do this without any other help. You don't have to have a beer in our hand. We can just sit and talk. So it's a good time.
Yeah,
I really do appreciate you coming on board and being part of the group.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Now we're called the Gap Crew because we have the three of us. But PG's not here today. He's out about doing something.
Sure.
We don't know. But a lot of times when he goes off the radar, you can't get a hold of him.
Sure. Yeah, he's like in the air. Shooting animals with bows and arrows. And
right,
stuff.
Yeah, he goes full native.
Yeah.
When he goes out and does stuff. So we have no idea what's going on. We just know that.
I don't think he's shooting animals now, just to be clear.
Yeah, I don't think he is right now. Just
don't call your local DNR friend.
We know people that listen to this.
That's right.
Matt, he's not doing anything illegal.
I think he's hanging out with some church folks golfing, right?
Yeah. He's got to get his golfing in before the end of the year.
Yep.
And so he looks for every opportunity he can, which is good.
Yeah, I think connecting with folks, and it's a good thing to.
You need to. I don't think people realize that when you are, pastoring like us, you're on call 24/7.
Sure.
Your time is always available. So to have an odd moment to go golfing in the middle of the day or to do something, it doesn't come often, but when it does come, you want to try it. Yeah, you want to do it.
What's your thing? What do you do to kind of like that has nothing to do with Pastor Alex, but man, I just love this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I like music, you know that.
Yep.
So I'll sit down and work on something, but I also like knitting.
Oh, really?
Knitting's my thing, especially in the wintertime.
I knew this. Yeah, cool.
In the wintertime, I can sit for hours and knit hats that nobody wants. And it's just fun for me, it's one of those things that's kind of funny.
Does Amy do it with you?
No.
Well,
she
now
did.
is the time to knit.
She did for a little bit. But I don't, she can't sit there forever and just for me, I can sit there for a couple hours and do it and not have any problems. I'll turn on the news or whatever and just kind of sit there and do it. Yeah, but it's just one of those things where it just keeps your hands busy, you know, and just gives you something to do, especially in the wintertime, which is usually when I do it. And then, I make these hats that I think are awesome.
Right.
It's kind of like your kid that brings you the drawing they did at school, and they're like, this is Picasso, and you're like, yeah, this is great, and you put it on the fridge anyways, right? But truth, be told, it's just finger paint.
Well,
and that's what I do. I make
feel
finger
proud
paint
about it, and
knitting.
it's something that you could give to somebody you care about. That's all that matters.
That's what I do. And then they look at me and like, I might be poor, but I'm still not putting this on.
That's right.
I might need. I'm cold, but this is not going to help. So but it's still fun for me to get out there and to just have fun doing it. I have a whole bunch in my office right now.
Oh yeah,
that I made from last winter.
So what do you do with them? You give them as
I give them away. Yeah, I give them away to people, and everybody's always super nice about it. Oh, thank you for making it.
Sure.
And then I never see it. And I think they gave it to the thrift store, or they are hiding it in a drawer somewhere. And they're just like, this is just a nice thing, but just not. Yeah.
Yeah. What's something else you could knit?
I can do scarves. I can do hats. Okay. I can do scarves. I've done those little earmuff things for Amy. Yeah, I've done that. But
does Amy wear them?
No. She does the same thing everybody else does. She's like, "Oh, thank you, honey, for making this," and then it just kind of like gets put somewhere.
Placating your boy here. What are we doing? Come on.
I'll pull it out. I'll find it somewhere, and I'm like, "Oh, you haven't worn this in a while." And she's like, "Oh yeah, you're right.
Looking for that.
Yeah, that's right. That's where I put it. Yeah. Why was it next to the garbage?
Looking
I don't know.
For hours and hours and hours.
I know. Yeah. So really, it's just more for me. You know, just more of
it's good to have those things. Yeah, it is. It's good to have those things. And hopefully we think the more podcasts can be that thing for someone else too. If you're going for a walk or doing the laundry at home, or I found myself doing that. I'll be sweeping at home or mopping and folding laundry, and the more podcast is kind of my go-to on that. So
yeah, I do that when I'm driving home.
Yep.
I mean, it's so funny. People are like, how can you listen to yourself? But you kind of compartmentalize. Yeah. You kind of like, this is Alex podcast.
Yep.
This is Alex driving home. So it's two different places.
Well, and I think there's something to be said about, we watch the live stream back and stuff as a worship team and stuff. So I hope my worship leaders do that, but encourage them to, certainly. But it's like anything, if you want to be a good football team, you're going to watch film. You know what I mean? So,
you're going to want to see what you did and make sure that
if you could go back, Pastor Alex, and listen to the first sermons you preached. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They would be some...
Right.
There'd be some bangers, man. I tell you.
You just knew how much those people loved you in that congregation. Yeah. That's right, man.
I'm like, what did I didn't even know what I said. I mean, I remember saying something about Jesus, and
that's right.
I did find a tape. We were going through some of my stuff from my dad, and he kept a sermon tape that I apparently gave it to him at some point.
Oh, cool.
When I preached here at Herbert Lake.
Yeah. When I was that's special, man.
17.
That's cool. Wow.
And it's the young Alex.
Yeah.
It sort of made sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Good.
I think at the end of it, it was close to something.
Yeah.
Apparently it was something. We went on a missions trip, and I was the one that was slated to share about it.
Give the update and
So
cool.
it's just funny to hear your young voice when you're that young.
Well, and young ideas and you're kind of forming what you believe and
then I sing a song too on there.
Great.
So that was on there.
Good.
Yeah, the young Alex singing.
Nice.
Contemporary Christian,
yes.
It had a lot of vibrato. I know that.
Sure.
Had to back then. Yeah. Well, you've stepped into a more podcast if you have never heard of us before, we ask ourselves often, why do we have this podcast? Why do we listen to the podcast? Well, we wanted to help you answer that. If you're kind of like sitting there going, why am I listening? Well, we want to help you maximize opportunities for right now and eternity. That's what we do. We want to give you stuff to help you now and get prepared for when we're with Jesus for eternity. And so we do that with a lot of fun. Little sarcasm every now and then, sprinkled with a little sarcasm. But eventually we get to the point of it all, which is about us talking about what Jesus has done. So welcome to more podcasts.
Yes.
Well, today's podcast is sponsored by Sharper Image, which gives you the single-serve cookie maker. I looked this thing up, and I'm like, this is brilliant.
This is real?
This is a real thing.
Okay.
Step aside... this is what their ad says. Step aside, full-size ovens. The single-serve cookie maker is here to save the day. Imagine having a warm, gooey cookie in your hand in just 5 minutes. That's the magic of this tiny cookie oven. The single-serve cookie maker boasts a sleek stainless steel shell. Not only does it look good, but it's built to last. The tiny marble fits snugly beside your single-serve coffee machine, making it a stylish addition to any kitchen. Chewy or crispy, the single-serve cookie baker lets you decide with a customizable baking timer. You can perfect your cookie texture. Get yours today from Sharper Image.
Wow.
I know. I was like,
cool.
That's their ad.
I do think that's problematic to just make one cookie, though.
Right.
Like...
It's it's kind of like,
When have you ever just had one?
Right, that's the problem. Right. I know. It's kind of like trying to help you, if you are diabetic.
Maybe
just
that's
one.
It, right?
Just one.
Maybe that's the thing. Like self-control.
It's supposed to help you with that.
Sure.
But if you can make them in 5 minutes,
you can crank them out, and then you have eaten like fresh cookies.
I just keep putting them. Take one out, put one in.
It's like like an adult easy bake oven.
It's like having your own crack dealer in your home, and you're like, "Hey, I'm looking for single serve sugar. I don't want to look like I'm addicted. I just want one,
right on.
And then when that's gone, you're like, maybe one more.
Sure,
5 minutes. It really rationalized a lot of this out. You're like 5 minutes later.
You can have cookies at like every meal now.
Yeah, right.
And
Somebody buys this and is like, "This is Dad's machine. Don't touch it."
Yeah, don't touch it.
You just make your cookie. But I was thinking about how you make the batter. I mean, do they? I wonder if they give you like a little instruction on how to make your cookie for 5 minutes.
Well, right, and then it's just 5 minutes.
5 minutes is what they say. Yeah.
Man.
It's probably using some sort of like nuclear.
Yeah, it's going to be super hot.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah,
And
that's interesting.
I don't know.
Do you keep the dough in the fridge and just
I would
crank that stuff out all day long?
Yeah, make enough for like a dozen in a bowl in your fridge, and then you just take a little scoop out and put it in there.
Okay.
So you're always ready to go.
Right.
When that hunger hits you. See, the problem in my house, we try to keep sugar out of our house.
Uh-huh.
But my son, he brings cookies in the house all the time.
Sure.
And he's like, "Yo, I'm going to eat these. You guys don't have to eat them." Well, what do you think's going to happen?
Yeah, right.
I mean, you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, you know, turn on a little Fox News because you can't sleep. You go in the kitchen. You're going to go for the cookies.
That's your deal at 3 a.m.?
Oh, every time.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know what it is. 3 a.m. I get up.
Okay.
Well, usually before then I've gone to the bathroom like 5 times.
Yeah.
But then at 3 o'clock, I don't know. I just wake up and then I'm like sitting there going, I want to get back to sleep.
How do I do that?
Yeah. And so then what I'll do is I'll just get a glass of water so I can pee 5 more times for the night. And then I get, you know, a cookie or whatever that's out there.
Yeah.
You know, and lately it's been Oreos.
It should be a melatonin laced cookie or something.
It needs to be something. I need, you know, we have this Alexa thing in our kitchen. So every time I walk in there, it says, you know, hello, Alex, or hello, Amy.
Throw that in the trash.
I love that thing.
What are you doing
It's
with
so
that?
much fun.
It talks to you as you walk into the room?
Yeah.
What are we doing at the Norton's house?
I don't know. And then I'll say, you know, if I want to watch the news, I'm like, play my news, and it'll play my news. But yeah, there's a lot of that kind of stuff that's interesting. I love it though. I wish it would tell me, hey, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, don't touch the cookies.
Right.
Or, hey, I'm watching.
A little accountability.
Yeah, I need a little accountability partner, and Alexa could be that. There might be an app out there. I don't know. Maybe if you're familiar with it.
That's too scary for me, man.
You don't like Alexa?
I don't have any of that, no. I mean, I guess I do because I have a phone, you know, but I just don't. Yeah, I'm not. I don't know.
I think it's funny because
I've seen enough crazy, scary movies where the AI takes over. So
well, now they're saying they're going to introduce a new AI system for Alexa. Okay, so she's going to learn faster.
Do we want that?
Probably not.
Right.
Probably not. But
and that's the thing that I always go to, man. Yeah. Is we all have seen the movie. Like we've seen the movies where this stuff takes over. Are we just taking dummy pills here or whatever? Well, like, come on, man. I mean, like
when you grew up in an era of Star Wars and Star Trek,
and like we're living in the age of the Jeffersons.
Yeah,
and all
I know.
Stuff,
it's so
but like
fun.
this. Yeah, I don't know, man.
When you've got
my tinfoil foil hat is firmly on my head when I talk about this stuff. Of like,
well, think about it. You know, Eloise comes to you with a question you can't answer.
I got a Google machine in my phone.
Alexa, tell me the answer. I got it.
I know, but why? Yeah. It's the same thing. The phone is the same thing. It's the exact same thing.
It sounds soothing, though, when she says it. Yeah. She can tell you.
Come over and anoint your house with oil. Pray deliverance prayer.
Oh, she reads the Bible to you now. She reads the Bible to you. Yeah. You can say, what's the verse of the day? And then she'll start reading it to me.
Okay.
It's good. Maybe she got saved. I don't know. Yeah, well, you've been hearing his voice across the way there. His son, Theo, asked him, you know, if April showers bring Mayflowers, what does Mayflowers bring? And Ted, without hesitation, said pilgrims. Pastor Ted.
And we've got Pastor Alex over there, too. The only man to climb a tree to catch a squirrel and act like a nut in doing so. Pastor Alex.
That is truer than you think.
Really. Yeah.
Honestly, it happens quite often.
You get big squirrels over in Toppinabee?
We do. Yeah, and the thing is that we can't park our car near the trees because there's acorns that fly out that thing.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of it has to do with the squirrels up there.
Sure,
you know, whipping them down.
They're plotting it.
Oh yeah,
they're talking to Alexa. And
get that guy, get him out of here. Well, when we come back from our ID break, we'll be right back with some testimonies about this week's Mackinac Bridge Walk 2024. Right. It's interesting. The media put out a bunch of interesting quotes about people that have walked the bridge. And so we're going to look at those, and we'll be right back.
Headphones on. Check. The perfect podcast on. Check. Not sure why you're listening? Good point. Should you keep listening? Yes. Should you tell others you listen to the More Podcast? Good idea. Life just got better.
So the Mackinac Bridge happened Labor Day.
Yeah.
Did you see any pictures of that?
I did, last night. Yeah,
it's kind of cool.
Yeah,
we did it a long, long time ago. When President Bush walked.
Oh, okay.
So we thought it'd be cool.
Sure.
Never saw the guy.
Right.
But we were there on the bridge with him.
Yeah.
So that's my claim to fame.
Well, but that CIA was doing their job.
Right. Yeah.
It's a good thing you didn't see that, man.
And it was a different time because you could actually have a backpack.
Right.
And all that stuff. Yeah.
Right.
And nobody even thought anything about it.
30,000 people.
Yeah.
Not wild.
Yeah, and they walk 5 miles.
Yep.
So it's an interesting thing. It's nice.
Yeah.
Super windy usually.
Yep.
So
I was hanging out with Matt Robertson at a volleyball game last night, and so he had to work it, right? So there's law enforcement that have to work it, and so he was on a boat underneath the bridge, and they hold all the boats back from going under the bridge.
Okay.
And even if you're a kayaker, you don't get to go under the bridge.
Why is that?
Well, I mean, for that reason, right? So somebody's got the bad intention.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
People on the bridge. Yeah. But he was saying to me that they used to do it where you could walk half, I guess.
And then turn back around?
Well, and then a bus.
Oh,
and he said no more. And he goes,
yeah.
He goes, you have to be committed to walking the 5 miles. And if you are somebody who's not capable of doing that, tough luck.
Yeah. You don't have it.
There's all these pictures of people who are like sitting on the side, like hand in their heads, like this was a terrible mistake.
What was I thinking? You don't, if you get to a certain age.
Yeah,
it's just not much fun
it's scary up there too. Yeah. Like I had the great part of that. I don't love it. I don't love that.
Amy hates driving over that thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I'm going over the grate, and she's like, "Yeah, you hear that?" And she hates it.
Yeah,
because she doesn't want to be that close.
I'm with her. Yeah.
I don't mind. I don't mind it. Yeah. It doesn't bother me too much. But
it is cool. But it is like, okay.
Did you see that they were going to pay guys $75 an hour to do maintenance on that thing? It was in the paper. They were looking for guys to go up there to paint because they're always that thing's constantly getting painted.
Yeah, it's never not painted.
Yeah,
I heard that. Yeah,
and then the bulbs and all that stuff.
Sure.
So they pay him $75 an hour.
Yeah, you'd have to do that. I couldn't imagine doing that, man. No way.
Walking up there, the only thing that's holding you up there is a string.
Nope.
Locked to whatever that is up there. I don't know.
That's a different person who can do that, not me.
Yeah, I mean, you get those guys and the guys that get on top of the towers to change stuff. Yeah.
Those videos of that, I don't know.
It's not for me.
No. So what are they saying here?
It's interesting because they basically interviewed a bunch of people that went across. These are actual quotes from people that went over the bridge or were doing the bridge walk. The first one that was interesting is they interviewed somebody and they said, well, I thought the hardest part of the bridge walk would be the 5 miles, which I think we all believe and know. But it turns out it was deciding which side had the better selfie angles. Yeah. I saw a lot of those.
That's a Northern Michigan problem there.
Well, how many pictures have you seen where people are going through the bridge and they take a picture as they're going through the yeah. I mean, they're out there millions of them. But I don't know. I did see somebody post a picture of them under the bridge. This is the first time I've ever seen this. Yeah, it looked pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Here's another one. Mackinac Bridge Walk. Where you start with excitement and end with questioning all your life choices.
Yeah, that's that person with their hands on their head, right?
Sounds like a Gen Zer there. I don't know. Or a senior citizen that's like, I thought I could do it with my walker, and it's not going to happen.
Sure.
Can you take those carts across? I wonder if you can do that.
Ooh.
Like if you're an electric scooter person.
I wouldn't think so.
They would consider that a card, probably like, no, can't do it.
Right. The spirit of this is we're walking.
Sorry, ma'am.
Sorry.
I don't care if you can't walk.
Well, I would think there'd just become so many more logistic questions of there's 30,000 people on the bridge.
Right, yeah.
So now we're doing carts too?
Yeah, electric scooter carts.
Right.
What if
you get hit in the grocery aisle with those things?
All the time.
All those people, packed in onto the bridge.
Yeah. I've been in Walmart before.
Yep.
Where I've watched somebody try to get through the real tiny aisles.
Yep.
And all you hear is beep, beep, beep. And then they go for it. Beep, beep, beep.
Sure.
And they can't get in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just so they can get to, I don't know, like a fishing rod that they're never going to use. Here's another one. Did I finish the bridge walk? Yes. Did I also invent new curse words for wind? Absolutely. Yeah. It gets windy up there.
Oh, yeah.
Super windy.
Yep.
I mean, as soon as you start leaving the land and you start getting over the water, I mean, the Straits of Mackinac, it's no joke there.
Absolutely. I mean, I went to college with a girl. I'll never forget this. It was like freshman orientation class. And she told the story. It was like, what is the best thing you did this summer? You know, it was an orientation thing. And she said, well, my mom's the mayor of St. Ignace. And we know the bridge authority. So she was able to walk and go to the highest point. So they go through the big like petition thing that holds the wires, and there's a tunnel that you climb a ladder, and she's got pictures of crazy, right?
No, thank you.
No, I wouldn't do it either.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
If you told me that's amazing, I'd be like, great, I'm glad.
Yep.
I don't need to see it for myself.
No, not at all.
Getting up there, I think I've never been one to like faint.
Sure.
But I might.
Yep.
Getting that
just
high.
claustrophobic, even getting through the pipes
that's
to get
the
up there.
Claustrophobic.
Dude, my like Instagram like reels thing is on all these cavers.
Oh.
Good night.
Yeah, I know.
Why are, and I can't look away, Alex.
Yeah, I know.
I'm like, this man is stuck in this tiny little hole, and guess what? You chose to do it.
Yeah, right. You put yourself there.
To do it. Yeah, I just can't handle it.
There's no way to get through there either. Yeah,
no way. So there's a twofold with claustrophobic of climbing the little tower, and then not little tower, and then getting to the top would be like, knees shaking. I can't do it. I get anxiety even thinking about it.
I do. I watch those cavers too. I get them on there, and I'm like, why would you go through that? And they're like, oh, it's getting kind of tight. Well, yeah. And if you get stuck, there's nobody to get you out. Yeah.
The only reason that I'll watch it, I'm like, okay, obviously this video got out.
Yeah.
So they got out.
So they're fine. That's what you tell yourself.
That's what I tell myself. But like, that is anxiety inducing.
Oh yeah.
30-second video, man.
You don't want to.
Stuck. Pinned between two rocks.
It's kind of like a Blair Witch video.
And
like it somehow got out.
To do it. Right. You chose it, man.
No. I don't know.
Let's move on. I don't want to even talk about it anymore, man.
He's sweating right now. Here's another one. Crossing the Mackinac Bridge on foot was exhilarating until I realized my return trip was another 5-mile hike back. Yeah. That happens a lot.
Yeah, man.
Because there's no more buses doing anything.
That's what. Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
We're done.
No more.
So you got to walk it back. Mm-hmm. They used to have you only walk on one side.
Right.
And then the other side was the transports.
Yeah.
And that's what we did the first time we did.
Really?
Yeah, there was a transports there, and so we just took it back. And I'm like, it's not too bad, instead of a 10-mile walk. I mean, who needs 10?
I think it's only 2.5 down. I think it's 5 total.
You think it's 5 total?
Yeah.
I thought it was 5 one way.
I don't think that's right. I think it's 2.5.
Really?
Yeah, Matt told me 5 last night, there and back. Because he was saying there were people who were like, I can't make it.
That's too long.
No, yeah. I mean, again, and I think you add, the elevation and the wind and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's extra.
Seagulls.
So, right?
Yeah.
That is a thing I never did, and I'm not dying to do.
I wouldn't.
More power to you if you want to walk the bridge. I'm not, but just that's not a Ted Polly's activity.
What is the fun of it? That's what I don't understand. What is really the fun in it? It wasn't fun when I did it.
It's like a shared, everybody does it thing, and there's that, and it was beautiful Monday too, so that'd be fun, I guess. But I don't have any desire to do that.
Well, I'm not one of those people that looks at hikers and goes, "Man, I need to do that."
Yeah.
Why?
Right.
I mean, the only thing I want to walk to is my house, my office, my car. That's about it. I don't think
my next meal.
I don't need to hike just for the fun of it.
That's right.
I don't get the fun.
Yep.
Although,
I always equate it like there's. I always tell people, there's 2 kinds of Labrador retrievers. There's the Labrador retriever that's like dying to go duck hunting and get in the water, and then there's a Labrador retriever who likes to curl up on the couch. I'm more that second type of Labrador.
I'm with you.
Retriever.
Yeah. I'm like, let me just find a spot right here.
Right.
Yeah.
And life's good still.
Who needs to? Who needs to? We're so good at finding those type of personalities. Both of our dogs.
Yeah.
Our husky, who's supposed to, pull sleds.
Yep.
Would rather be inside sleeping on the couch.
Like your ancestors.
Yeah.
Were in the snow, traveling hundreds of miles.
They did their Iditarod, man, and you're laying here, and then our hound dog, she's like so wants to be inside all the time.
Yeah.
Like she does her business, comes inside, and that's she's good. I'm like, okay. So,
Yep.
have an eye for that kind of stuff. The last one here is the only thing stronger than the Mackinac Bridge is the bond formed by strangers walking against the wind together. Yeah, you do that. You have to kind of stay close together.
Yep. Now that I'm thinking about it, I did cross the bridge, but it was on a bike tour. We were on bikes.
That's even worse, though.
I kind of think so. I mean, you get across it faster, but the wind thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that is, you think about there are semis that get blown over.
Yeah.
Now we're going to put this is like a youth group thing when I was in high school. So you got these little girls riding across on bikes and
yeah.
And you couldn't have, I remember you had to have a certain size of tire because it'd get in the,
in the grates?
In the joints and stuff
Well,
I wouldn't do that again today. Yeah. That's not something I'd be dying to do.
Do you remember the Yugo that got blown over? Oh, maybe it was before your time, but I remember growing up, one of the things that happened, maybe it was in the 80s it happened, one of the Yugos, those Polish cars that used to be sold there, they drove over the bridge, and apparently it was pretty windy. Oh, and blew it off the bridge.
How terrifying.
Yeah.
What a way to go. And
I know.
Just absolute terror.
And you don't really think about it, but when you're falling from that height, by the time you hit the water, it's like hitting concrete. Yeah, it's not, you're not going to in the water.
Oh, my goodness.
So, yeah, Yugos.
Okay.
I think after that, they kind of became unpopular. Yeah. People are, a Yugo gets blown over.
All right. No more Northern Michigan Yugos.
No. It was like a 3-cylinder car. It was some Polish company.
Oh, okay.
But they were, I don't know if they were really popular around here, but, somebody found one. And they're like, this Yugo is cheap.
Sure.
Three cylinders. Or I don't know.
Weird.
It was weird, yeah.
Huh.
You had to push it to start it, get going. You could probably run faster. But people loved them. People that had them loved them.
Yeah.
Until that happened, and everybody's like,
yeah, right.
Yeah, we're not doing it.
No.
Well, okay, so that's some of the stuff back from Mackinac Bridge. I mean, apparently people had a good time.
Yeah.
30,000 people were there. Was the governor there? I don't remember.
I don't know.
I didn't hear anything about that.
Either.
But it's a good time. So if you ever get a chance and you want to inspire your children and let them see what Americans have potential to do, which is build this bridge in the middle of the streets of Mackinac. Take them across.
That's right.
It'll be worth it.
Yeah.
And then, then you can deal with them crying all the way back because they have to walk back to the car.
That's right.
That you parked over in Mackinac City. Yeah. We'll be right back.
Attention listeners, this is not a drill. We are hijacking your airwaves for the Gap Crew on More Podcast. That's right, web. Forget everything you were planning to do because I'm here to bring you the most hilarious, uplifting, and downright divine podcast experience you've ever had. So, drop what you're doing, crank up the volume, and get ready for a spiritual joyride. This is More Podcast with the Gap Crew, and we're taking over.
This is Sonny Dale reporting for Babylon Bee News. News that you could trust if it were real. Ely, Nevada, Eddie Gronkowski, the pastor of New Vine Community Church in Uptown Ely, has calmly asked the members of his church to please stop tithing 1/10 of their mint, dill, and cumin. Where are you even getting this stuff? The pastor asked during Sunday announcements. Membership was reportedly confused at the admonishment because Jesus specifically mentions mint, dill, and cumin in the book of Matthew. Gronkowski had to sit down with several members to explain that the passage only incidentally brings up mint, dill, and cumin. The pastor sighed and gently explained, "This is about the Pharisees ignoring portions of the law in favor of keeping up appearances. This passage isn't actually about tithing. But here Jesus says, these are the things you should have done without neglecting the others." Church member Howard Strata said. So he expects us to tithe mint, dill, and cumin. We have to do everything. According to church sources, the tithing of mint, dill, and cumin became a major problem when one of the deacons fell gravely ill from a severe cumin allergy. "I was passing around the offering plate and people kept throwing spices in it and I almost died," he later recalled as others prayed over his weak body. Something has got to be done about this. The pastor was determined to resolve the matter by discussing it at the midweek Bible study. a decision he later lived to regret. According to Leviticus 27:30, God called on the Hebrews to tithe 1/10 of their produce, whether grain from the soil or fruit from the trees. It didn't actually have to be mint, dill, and cumin. No one was expected to go out and find cumin if they didn't have any, Gronkowski explained to members. Also, we're not actually under this law. This is something the Jews did that God does not ask of us. At publishing time, the Bible study had reached hour 4 of arguing what it meant when Jesus said that no letter of the law would disappear, and if the congregation needed to begin tithing any fruit that fell from trees. This is Sonny Dale, reporting exclusively on More Podcast. By the way, the fruit basket you sent me was rotten.
Oh my gosh. We sent him a fruit basket?
That must have been something.
Well, we do send them leftovers from. Yeah, we do send them leftovers that come in, and we're like, I'll just send it to Sonny Dale. He'll take it.
That's right.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, tithing and those kind of things. I mean, that's taking it pretty literal.
That's right.
Yeah,
it's harvest time for many gardens.
Yeah, I would.
Here's what are the zucchinis? It's zucchini season, right?
Yeah. Rhubarb.
Everyone's got the big giant zucchinis they're leaving on everybody's doorsteps.
Yeah, right. Start tithing rhubarb in the bucket and zucchinis.
That'd be kind of cool.
Mushrooms, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what the usher's going to do with it when they start putting it out there.
It's just for Wednesday night meal, man.
Yeah, right. We can use it for something.
That's right.
Oh, I don't know. I've rhubarb. We've been getting rhubarb from some friends of ours, and my wife has made so many things.
The only thing you can do with it, right, is make pie.
No. Leave it to my wife. She'll find out. She's made rhubarb butter, rhubarb pie, rhubarb. I mean, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, it's rhubarb.
It's dessert, though, right? That's what we do with rhubarb.
Mainly, yeah. That's what I would. That's what I always thought of it, but I don't know where she's getting her recipes from.
Sugar and butter, man.
Yeah,
magic.
That's all you need.
Yep.
Yeah, and you can turn a bitter root into something.
Do you like?
Good.
I like rhubarb with strawberry. I always feel like you got to cut it.
That is super good.
Yeah.
She made a rhubarb crisp the other day, which is pretty good. Yeah. The thing is, if you don't cook it well enough, it's kind of like eating celery.
Yeah, right.
With strawberries.
Don't want that.
You don't want that. Okay, we got Rapture Radar News coming up. We'll be right back.
Get Rapture ready with your favorite host today, Pastor Gary and Pastor Alex Norton, as they come to you with information that you need to make it through the times coming ahead, and more.
And Pastor Ted. That's in there. Yeah. Well, on Rapture Radar News, it's interesting. We got 3 major topics to hit the news. I don't know if they've been talked a lot about what you listen to, but it seems like these are becoming issues that need to have conversations at some point, but it involves all Americans. The first one is this ongoing debate over Christian nationalism. Some of the pastors got together and started talking about this more, but basically nationalism is where you somehow apply your Christian faith to your political views,
right?
And you kind of combine them, mix them, and make them one. Yep. And so now your political views and your faith views coincide together.
Yeah.
And that's basically how you look at everything going on. The problem is that some of the church pastors in America are saying that there needs to be a discussion about this. Like, we're not talking about the separation anymore. We're just basically saying, well, if you agree with one party and they agree with some of your tenets,
sure,
then they're good. And then you start making it a very much a spiritual, spiritual thing. And it's not good.
Nope.
It's not good because nationalism. Well, we've said this before. We're part of the kingdom of God, not kingdom of America. So,
yep, yeah. I think a helpful thing to talk about when we talk about Christian nationalism in America is to think about Nazi Germany. And to think about the confessing church and the German church. And so if you know anything about those two, the German church was a group of people who basically took what the Nazis said as hook, line, and sinker. They put the flag in the front of the building. Jesus was this strong Aryan man.
Yeah.
They redacted it. Right. redacted a ton of stuff about his Jewishness. The Old Testament basically was thrown out. So obviously, as Bible-believing Christians, we know that is heresy.
Right.
That is far, far, far away from biblical orthodoxy and where we want to be. And I think that for Americans, as someone who myself is very conservative politically, I'm never giving up my kingship or I'm never giving up my residency in a heavenly kingdom for an earthly one. If that makes sense. I'm never giving up my my citizenship in God's kingdom and trading that in for an earthly kingdom. And sadly, I think we see people do that, right?
Very much so, yeah. It's becoming it is becoming a problem.
Yeah.
Because when you start equating things that are happening in the political party that you like as being almost divinely set up, or you start using that kind of terminology.
Yes.
Granted, yes, they are appointed by God. I mean, it says in Romans, but it also says in Scripture that you and I are pilgrims of this world.
Yeah.
We're ambassadors of the kingdom of God. We're not necessarily a part of this world. And so we got to be careful that, we don't just buy into it and say, this is what it is. You can't redefine what you want, the tenets of the kingdom of God to be just so it fits with what your ideologies at this point.
Sure.
You gotta be careful.
Yeah, you got to be. And I think, it doesn't take anyone a long time having paid attention to American politics of the wind will change politically. And then all of a sudden, you're at a totally different basis of ideology for your preferred party. And so just being aware of that, like being a well thought out Christian of why do I vote the way I vote, and having those heart checks, man, because again, as someone who is very conservative politically, my hope is in Jesus Christ and Him alone.
Yeah, and that needs to be talked about more than anything else, right? I mean, it's one thing to get involved with the politics of Europe, because my wife and I are active, a part of Right to Life, and I mean, they're very political because they lobby and that kind of stuff,
and need to be,
and they need to be, for that. But at the same time, I'm not. You don't put it on the same level as my church affiliation, ideology, and doctrine,
right?
You got to be careful.
Yep. Yeah. And I think knowing, you're going to know a political party by their fruit, right? You're going to know a Christian by their fruit. And so if one's claiming the gospel, right? If one's claiming we're followers of Jesus, we'll just look at the fruit. And so, go where the Holy Spirit tells you to go. And that's, I think, pretty obvious at this point, right?
Yeah.
Like we're seeing unprecedented moral decay within our country like we've never seen before, right? And so being able to parse that out and be able to understand and know that as a citizen of heaven, you need to speak truth. And I think one of the ways that you speak through truth is through a ballot also. So I think that's true, but it is a fine line to walk there.
Well, and I know that Trump, like at least the first time he went through, I mean, he had mainline pastors, megachurch pastors just on the board, and validating and vindicating everything. And I think that's, you got to be careful, especially if you are a pastor, the influence you carry within your congregation. You don't just, for me personally, I've always been one to try to separate the two. I don't like to mix them, simply because people do look at you as sort of a moral compass.
Yeah.
And when you start saying stuff like this, and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to go with what he's saying."
Sure.
He must have done the research or looked into this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. For me, I kind of get a little weird about that. I'm like, I mean, it's good that you try to help people see that there's things going on, but at the same time, you kind of push it too far, and then people are like, oh, "I'm just going to vote the way the pastor votes." And so leadership in America, I think, is starting to wise up to this fact that we got to be careful.
Sure.
Because we can influence people and push people into a certain frame of mind, even though they may have not done the research on their own. And I think that's what it comes down to, is if you're going to be a voting part of this country, then you need to know what you're voting for, not expect everybody else to kind of force feed it to you.
Yep. Yeah. Having better answers for why, I have lots of family members or friends that, they would see life and the political landscape very different than I, and they would go, well, why, tell me why you vote the way you do.
Right.
And it's not just this answer of, well, I think this person is the Messiah, because I don't.
Right.
I don't think that. And I think that we need to, as Christians, have better better answers, better discernment, and why we're voting. And I saw something the other day that I think is just super true, is a cast at the ballot box is not a Valentine. It's a movement of a chess piece for a world that I want. And I think that's true.
A good quote. Yeah.
You don't have to love and want to have dinner with your candidate.
Yeah, right.
You don't.
Yeah, I know.
And you can also understand that adults need to make hard decisions sometimes.
Right.
And then, but I just, sometimes I get a little weary of like, well, this person met with this pastor and they prayed the prayer. I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope that's true, but I don't know them. And I know I'm smart enough, I want to be as wise as a serpent and to know this is a political game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Candidates
seriously.
are playing on your emotions, and don't get sucked into that.
They know what to say
exactly
to get you excited.
Smart.
Yeah.
Vote smart. And
well, politics and religion have never gone good together.
Right.
And it's always been a bad relationship.
Yep.
And, just look in your history, whenever religion got involved with the kings or the monarchs, usually turned bad.
Absolutely.
It didn't turn out, but, good for us.
Yeah.
So, you definitely have to be reserved and do your best, but to figure out which candidate will work well for you. But at the same time, by all means, please do not buy into these social narratives right now.
Yeah.
About certain candidates being the Messiah.
Nope.
Prophesied.
Don't do it.
These guys that put out prophecies and stuff about it, I'm like, oh, come on.
Run away from them. Yeah.
Sure, God has a place in it. God does appoint and do things, but at the same time, be careful.
Yep.
It's just one of those things. Okay, so that's one of the things that hit the news headlines. Another one is apparently pastors are starting to notice that there's a hard road to hoe with the new generation of millennials and Generation Z in the church. Barna, this is from Barna. They did research in some of the mainline churches, and they're saying that they're having a hard time getting Christians, younger Christians, into the traditional idea of what church looks like.
Yeah.
Like even Harbor Light, even though we're not very traditional, we're still kind of traditional in the sense that we have a praise and worship time, we have a preaching time, and all those kind of things. And so apparently to millennials and Gen Z, they're even questioning some of that, the validity of what that should look like, and wondering, is this really what it's all about? And so some of the questions that are being brought out are, is church really just about this thing, coming to church on Sunday, hanging out, listen to somebody speak, listen to some music, and then go home? Is there more to it?
Sure.
And I think really what it comes down to, from what I understand from the article, is that millennials and Gen Z are looking for community life, not just church.
Yep.
The traditional idea of church or whatever that church concept looks like, that's been around for a while. So a lot of pastors are trying to really think, what do we need to do to change this? Because as the boomers, and the busters are getting older.
Yep.
They're stepping away from leadership roles. And so the next generation has to step up. But how do we get them involved? How do we get them to see the importance of being a part of this? And so I don't know. There's a lot of talk about restructuring. How do we make it look? It has to be a certain way?
Sure.
If you're in some of the evangelical churches, obviously we don't have sacrosanct, service set up like you have in the Episcopalian or the Catholic or the Methodist or Lutheran, Presbyterian. We're a little bit open more towards that, but still, even we get kind of in our ruts of how we think things should be.
Yeah, tradition is not from 100 years ago. There can be tradition from 20 years ago, 5 years ago. That Yeah, what do you think? You guys, you've been in the church for a long time, different parts of America.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
I've always really we tried it a little bit. We tried an experiment when we first started pastoring with a college church. And of course, we had the traditional, service set up. Somebody preached, somebody sing. But we started to do more of what we called more of an organic hippie type thing, where we would always associate what happened on Sunday for community life afterwards. So we would get together after church, have dinner with all the students, and then we would have a Bible study at night or whatever, and we'd just hang out.
Sure.
And it would continue on after church. So it didn't just stop on Sunday. It was a lot of work for us, but we really started to notice an interesting shift within the church itself. And so what happened after church started moving into the service. And so things like worship would go longer.
Right.
Things like the speaking part would be there, but it'd be very impactful for a short period of time. So you find as much as you can possibly shove into like 15, 20 minutes.
Okay.
And then everything else was like worship and prayer and stuff like that. And so that to me became something I really picked up on, because they really seemed to get into that. They didn't feel like they were just there to fill a seat.
Sure.
They were part of a community that they knew did other things too.
Right.
And so we would do a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But that's something that's been in the back of my mind for a long time.
Sure.
It was like, it seems like that generation really needs community, because a lot of them, I didn't even think about this till later on. My wife and I were talking about it. Like, why was it so impactful? Because we went from a church that had 7 people showing up on Sunday to a church that had about 75 to 80 people. Wow. And they were all college students.
Okay.
And it was all because of that community connection.
Yeah.
And they knew that it wasn't just about where they would go to other churches and they would just sit there and then leave and then go home. They would hang out together, they'd do stuff together, and we would do stuff during the week and that kind of stuff. But it involved a lot. And I think that's where sometimes the disconnect within the traditional idea, or the idea that we have a lot of times for church, is that, we compartmentalize our relationships with people in the community, right?
Yeah.
We see you on Sunday, hi, we'll give you hugs.
Right.
Then after church, we don't talk to you.
Sure.
We don't see you.
Yeah.
And I think that's what some of them notice, is that, what is this about? You're willing to smile, nod, give me a hug, tell me how much you love me on Sunday, but then afterwards, what are we doing?
Sure.
And so I think Christians, if you want to find success, I think we're going to have to find sort of this mindset of an open door policy in life.
I agree.
You cannot isolate yourself after Sunday and say, well, I saw you Sunday, let's just forget about it, until we see each other next Sunday.
Yeah.
I think that's where we're going to start moving, because, it's going to force us to do that eventually when the government and people start coming against us.
Sure.
Pressure usually breeds that. I mean, look at Acts chapter 1 and 2. I mean, the people didn't, just meet for church and then go home. They started living together, eating together, hanging out, and that was the norm until persecution left, and then they kind of spread out. But they did that because that's what pressure caused.
Right.
And, we don't realize that now, but I mean, that's what's going to happen now. When you start finding out that your family doesn't agree with your political or your spiritual views, the government doesn't, all these other things, where do you think you're going to run to? You're going to run to people who have like-minded like you, and you're going to have to learn how to do life together.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
yeah, there's a lot there, man. I agree. I think there's, if you're in this place that, you're thinking about those things, I just encourage you to really kind of take heed with what Pastor Alex said, because I think there's a lot of truth that, the meat of your Christian experience will be in a living room, not in a sanctuary.
That's good.
And I think, what you're saying is true. I do get a little cynical, because I think sometimes we like to bash on the bride of Christ at times, and so the church is doing a lot of really good things.
It is.
Also.
It is.
So being able to, it's always helpful for me to kind of know where the question's coming from someone. So are you coming from a place of like, are you asking the question because you want to be a part of it in a deeper way?
Right.
Like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, are you asking the question because you want to be a part of positive change, or are you asking the question simply because you want to create discord and strife, or take shots at something you're probably not going to be a part of anyways? Because I think if we're honest, a lot of times folks who go, well, I don't go to church anymore because they don't X, Y, or Z,
right.
I hope that the church is a safe place for people to ask questions, for sure. But I think a lot of times you're probably not going to be involved anyways, because you've kind of hardened your heart to it or whatever. But
we tried to remedy a lot of that with like small group. Right?
Yeah.
And doing Wednesday Night Live and that kind of stuff. I mean, we try to get people to expand their understanding of.
Well, I mean, Harbor Light, we do small groups, right?
Yeah.
I know I'm in a much better place knowing I'm meeting with my group on. We don't meet in the summer, which I know.
Yeah, we don't either.
I'm sorry, community life pastor, but
we don't either, and I run it.
But it's the nature of Northern Michigan, and I do think there's, it's super fun to think about having options to invite people to who may not know the Lord.
Yeah,
and small group is a great option.
Yeah.
So maybe that person needs to come to a worship night, or maybe that person needs to come to a class on Wednesday night or Sunday morning. But we all know a lot of people who would be much more comfortable coming to a dinner and having their kids hang out together and, talking together with some friends.
To me, that,
makes a lot of sense.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense. But, a lot of it too, I think has to be people have to break down their own personal barriers, right? Mm-hmm. Because we kind of like the fact that we can retreat to our lives and not have to be connected to more people.
Yeah, but don't you think that's a product now of since COVID and since obviously just it felt like COVID kind of pushed everybody home and now we can work from home and we can do stuff from home. I wonder if millennials and Gen Z, they have a need in social and spiritual kind of family that they don't know maybe they have that need. Right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because you can just sort of, I exist online and I exist with my community of people that's very, very specific around knitting hats for no one. And we have a group that meets online, right?
Yeah.
So there's that kind of stuff. But again, meeting in a home with someone who is holding your hand through life's hardships and celebrating you when life's good, that's a different thing. Then
I think you're right. I think it's a good point. I mean, there needs to be some connection.
Sure.
And I think maybe this generation, for whatever reason, is wanting it more than the other ones have.
Right.
I mean, even my generation, Gen X. I mean, we can take it or leave it.
Yep.
It's not a big deal. I mean, we enjoy it.
Sure.
But at the same time, we kind of like our own thing. And it's funny as you do get older, though, that idea of isolating yourself becomes a normal shift.
I agree.
Yeah. Like now with our kids gone and we're by ourselves, we like the fact that we can come home and I don't have to have anybody else around. I can walk around my underwear and nobody's going to see it, but my wife, and she doesn't really care.
Right.
But you kind of get into the mindsets, but you almost got to kind of really push against that, right?
Yeah.
You got to push against that because fellowship is so much an important part of it. Yeah.
Yep. You got to try.
You got to do something. Well, so that's what's going on.
That could be its own podcast right there.
That could be. And then the last one is interesting. The Catholic Church is experiencing sort of a subtle split. They're going through some tensions right now. Apparently.
May we call it a reformation?
Yeah, sort of, yeah. But what's interesting about this shift is that the young people are driving it.
Yeah.
The young people want the traditional Catholic Church with all the traditional ideas and concepts, and the people that are older are moving more towards Pope Francis's reforms.
Is it
and changing?
So there's some moral change, right?
Yeah.
There's the human sexuality and abortion stuff.
They're having a problem with it.
You know what's crazy is, you think about that stuff and you spiritualize it because it's spiritual. That the Holy Spirit removes himself from an apostate church.
Yeah.
Right? I think we used to call people heretics and apostates a little more often in the day because they were.
Yeah.
And, an Orthodox view of marriage is a pretty foundational idea to an institution that's going to do marriage.
Right.
So good job, young people in the Catholic Church.
Right. I mean, they're driving it. I mean, I normally you think it'd be vice versa, right?
Right.
The older ones would be so much more for the traditional mindset, and then it's totally different. They're fighting for it. And so there's sort of this rift that's happening. It's becoming more and more of a thing in some of the bigger Catholic churches where you see the priest really promoting Pope Francis's views.
Yeah, wow.
So
that's incredible.
Something to think about, something to pay attention to in the news. But
needs to hang that digital 101 thesis on that.
Do you remember this?
Guys, we went down this road.
Yeah, we already did this. And so I wonder what it's going to look like. I mean, at some point, the dioceses are going to have to address this.
Yeah.
I mean, you got two factions within the same Catholic Church that are fighting for basically two different opposing views that are pretty big.
Yep.
You got one that's supporting Pope Francis, who has very liberal leanings on a lot of different things, and he's supposedly the voice of the Catholic Church. And then you have the people in the Catholic Church that are realizing that this is not what I grew up learning.
Right.
This is not the same thing. And so you got that rift. Well, we'll be right back after we take a break, and we'll be doing the big question. Pastor Ted,
I got the question today.
All right.
Let's go.
You're on the docket for this one. We'll be right back.
Ever wonder what happens when Pastor Gary, Pastor Alex, and Pastor Ted walk into a studio? Well, wonder no more. Join us as we grow, achieve, and pray. and maybe crack a few jokes along the way. We promise to bring you spiritual insights with a side of laughter, stories that will inspire you, and banter that will leave you in stitches. Get ready for the funniest, most uplifting podcast experience as we tackle life's big questions and the little ones too. So grab your headphones, settle in, and let's have some fun with the Gap crew on More Podcast.
All right, so we got the big question. If you've never heard of this before, on More Podcast, we do a question every week, something that has to either do with the Bible or Pastor Gary's new series on the Bible. But you send your answer to harborlightbibletrivia@gmail.com, harborlightbibletrivia@gmail.com, all lowercase, and then we take your name, put it in the Magic Wilson Insurance hat where all dreams come true. And last winter got a Yeti cup. Ben Butnick.
Ben got that cup.
Yeah, just barely.
Does he like it? Did you give it to him?
I haven't seen. I thought Pastor
Ben, you better show up with that thing on Sunday.
But yeah, it was lightly used.
Oh, he gave it to his dad. That's
right. Give it to his dad. Use it. Yeah.
Ben, check with your dad.
He's drinking now.
That's right. He may have your mug.
What Yeti cup was supposed to get? We know what's going on there. So what's the question for this week?
So I, as your worship pastor, am starting to think about Christmas.
Here we go.
So here we go. Which gospel writer recorded the family tree of Christ?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun.
You got 4 to figure out.
That's right. Not hard. Not hard.
Just look at them all.
That's right.
And it's probably going to be in the first chapter.
Crack it open. That's right. This is an easy one.
Yeah, it's going to be in the first chapter.
It's a great way to open a gospel.
You're right. If you have a Bible that doesn't have it in there, you got a problem.
Yeah.
But it should be in there somewhere. If you have the answer to that, send it to harborlightbibletrivia@gmail.com, harborlightbibletrivia@gmail.com, all lowercase. And let us know what you think the answer is, and then we'll put your name in the Magic Wilson Insurance hat where all the dreams come true. And you never know what you're going to win. I have no idea.
You don't know.
I don't even know right now. It all depends on how what Pastor Gary finds at the garage sales that he goes to.
Right.
And that could be the next prize.
You might be getting a golf tee and a Ziploc bag of range balls.
If he hits an estate sale, you're in trouble. It could be a lot of things.
Right.
How do you like a weed whacker from the 70s? Lightly used.
I'd take a weed whacker.
I know. Lightly used.
Fun. That'd be
cool.
You
know, I went to a garage sale this last week.
Yeah.
And I found a blower unit, you put in your backpack, and a weed whacker, steel weed whacker.
Yeah, man.
For $30.
No way.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, the guy was just wanting to get rid of them.
Yeah.
His wife's like, we're going green. And I'm like, oh, okay. What? These are great tools, though.
Just don't cut things.
Yeah, right.
Just let it grow. That's what I'm doing too.
Yeah, right. Just let it go. Let it grow up. No, she's getting all this stuff with batteries and stuff, and I'm like, and I was talking to her husband, and he's like, yeah, she really wants us to do this, but that stuff doesn't work. It barely cuts a weed.
Yeah, the battery thing doesn't work.
That's why I have one, and that's why I wanted a gas powered one.
Sure.
Because I'm like sitting there on a weed for half an hour trying to get it to cut. And the weed just like,
that's awesome,
keep it coming, man. This feels good.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me at all. Huh. So we'll be right back with Bible Talk. We're going to be talking a little bit about what Pastor Gary mentioned about Save to Serve and get into that. And we'll be right back.
Well, you're listening to More Podcast, where the Gap crew spill the tea on life, faith, and everything in between. We're talking deep dives with a splash of sass, wisdom with a wink, and plenty of did they really just say that moments? Buckle up, because we're about to take your faith and your funny bone to the next level. Just keep listening and get ready for more than you bargained for.
So serving.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Pastor Gary lays out this statement as he starts the series that we are saved to serve.
Yep.
I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, it was it reminds me honestly about Salvation Army, because that was one of our models was Saved to Serve.
Okay.
And one of the things that just hit me was like, that's really important to think about, that, we always talk about in our statement about having a purpose and finding our destiny. Yeah. And we wonder, like, what does that exactly mean? I mean, is it just kind of like I learn how to read the Bible and I come to church on Sunday?
Sure.
No, we're actually saying that there's more to it. Mm-hmm. And actually what Pastor Gary laid out is that not only are we just saved from hell, but we're saved for the purpose of serving the kingdom.
Right.
Which, may not be a new concept to a lot of people, but you kind of forget, right?
Sure.
You kind of get caught up in the humdrum of what's going on and in the church environment, and then you're like, oh, am I supposed to be doing something here? You know,
right. Yeah, I think you can become pretty quick in just that sense of, well, I'm attending and I'm active, you know, within. Maybe it's a political side, like I'm active in voting for who I think the Lord has me vote for, or whatever. Like, there's just so much more to being, you know, pro-life than just checking a box, right?
Yeah,
there's so much more to being a Christian who serves than just showing up into a building on Sunday morning.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this question. Yep. So we live in an environment now where things are so easy to come for us. Like we don't have to really work hard anymore to have food. It's at the grocery store. You know, you have to work to get money, but I mean, it's there.
Yep.
So you're not having to work the ground. You know, if you want to go somewhere, you can just get in a car and drive, and it's just a few minutes to get to wherever you need to go.
Sure.
We have TVs. We have Alexa, if you're into Alexa. You have all that stuff. But do you think it's starting to move into the church? Because, I mean, to start talking about this topic, about what serving means in a church, really makes me think that we're kind of missing the concept because we're starting to think differently.
Yeah, the language that kind of church people would use for, you know, the last 10, 15 years was a consumer mindset of church, right?
That's a good one, yeah.
That people come and, I don't know that this is indicative of Harbor Light, but, you know, a lot of times it's kind of this have it your way kind of mindset. Is you better sing the songs I like. I better be hear the sermon that I want to hear. The lights and the, you know, temperature better be set at what I want. And if you don't give it to me, I'll go someplace else.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a very warped view of what Jesus gives us as the body of Christ. And, you know, Pastor Alex, what you mentioned earlier of the book of Acts, of what it means to be the church together. And so serving the least of these, taking care of the orphan and the widow, you know, there's lots of opportunities for us as believers to band together and to serve folks. You know, it doesn't take long to figure out who's in need, and so I think that's helpful.
I think you're right. I mean, we don't have too much of a problem here at Harbor Light. We have a lot of people that work. I would say like 80, you know, the 80-20 where 20% people do all the work. Well, I think it's vice versa. I think it's 80% of us that do a lot of the work. But one thing I did notice in the message that really hit home for me was, okay, so we're serving, but how are we serving? You know, like what is our heart's intention? What is our thoughts about serving? And I think that was the thing that really started to take some traction on last Sunday. Yeah, was that concept of, okay, so you are serving, but what is your heart behind it? I mean, how are you thinking when you serve? And I think when you serve in something and you're like, I don't get, you know, any pats on the back or accolades or whatever it is, then you feel like, well, I'm not really loved or I'm needed here, or you're one of the other people that make it your life's mission to do everything, and then you burn out, and then you're like blaming everybody else for that. And I think that was one of the interesting things that Pastor Gary brought up, was that, you know, how do we deal with it with our minds and our hearts getting into it? I mean, are we looking for? He talked about two streams.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, I want to talk about the two streams too, but just to touch again on the heart side, you know, one of the greatest examples in my life right now is Karen Mindel, and just, you know, her ability to come in and say, you know, the stage is off 8 inches.
Yeah.
And if it's off, then the camera's off. And then, but the heart behind it is not just to nitpick or be a perfectionist, or the heart behind it is to go, you know, there's a mom at home who can't make it to church on Sunday, and we want to make sure that we're giving her the best picture of what's happening in the room that we can. So that camera angle really, really matters. And and she understands the why. It's not just, again, I want our stuff to look great. There's somebody who's going to watch this who needs to hear the gospel. They need to hear about Jesus. And that's super impactful. And it goes down to, you know, organizing a shelf in the basement of the underground and whatever, you know, to where there's this understanding that the part that she plays around here is far greater than organizing and putting labels on, you know, Tupperware or something like that. That it is about this sense of excellence for the Lord, and that there are people who that can have even the smallest impact of just wanting to be around or be a part of something where people are excited to be a part of it. And so I think that's a big deal. And I think that also leads us into that two streams thing that Pastor Gary was talking about, which is super helpful for me, of being able to go, how do you serve the church, and what's your mission?
Yeah.
right? And so, the way I took that was there's aspects and ways to serve as the body of Christ together.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and we have, I hope that we give lots of opportunities around here. It feels like we do. Pastor Amy does a great job, and just ministry heads and that kind of thing give great jobs of, hey, we need you to be involved. Here's how you can be as serving and spreading the gospel and the worship of Jesus on Sunday morning. But that the ministry and mission, like what's your mission, right? And so that was really helpful for me on Sunday to go, man, what an encouragement to get from your pastor to go, there's something you should be doing outside of these four walls.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like, do the thing that is going to help the function, right. of the organization and of ultimately the kingdom of God. But what's the thing that you do outside?
Mm-hmm.
And so I look at you and I think, well, man, that guy's speaking on behalf of the unborn. Mm-hmm. That's a big deal, right?
Yeah,
being involved in that kind of stuff is such a big deal, such a big deal.
Well, and then, we talk about getting involved in different aspects of the community. I mean, we got a lot of people here that are running for office.
Right.
Running for politics of some sort. And,
sure.
and that's one way of doing it, right? Yep. I mean, I think one thing that we do here well is we try to get people to connect their lives together.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes we separate them, right?
Sure.
You come into church on Sunday. This is one part of you.
Yeah.
You leave the church and you go to your job and you're a family man or whatever, wife, mother, whatever. Those things are all separate.
Sure.
And I think one thing that Pastor Gary definitely does well is that he tries to get people to see the connection that makes sense.
Right.
You can't do that with your life. I mean, I don't think that it is possible to live a healthy, fulfilled Christian life when you compartmentalize every aspect of who you are. Because at some point, those, it just seems like you got a bunch of pieces. Yeah. So where does it go? And even when we use the motto about finding our purpose and destiny, he's not just talking about the spiritual aspect of it. He's talking about the reality of our life as we live it every day. Like, what is your purpose for why you're here? And like you mentioned, it was good. How are we connecting that to our job environment? How are we connecting it with our family life?
Yeah.
I mean, they all are together. They're all one. And that's the way Jesus taught us to look at it. I think that for me, I think we talk about this idea of serving sometimes and looking at those different streams. I think we do want to do something for the kingdom. I think anybody that's part of the church wants to do something.
Yeah.
I think the issue is trying to figure out, well, what is that? I mean, what would God consider to be a good service, in that? And I think that's sometimes the disconnect too. Is like, what do I have to offer? What am I? What am I supposed to do here? But I think what's interesting is that we're looking for people to find anything that, God's already given you giftings for, and then to use it in service in the kingdom. I mean, if you're a builder, the church has used a lot of our builders here to help keep the building doing what it's doing and build the Solid Rock Center. But that's what God wants you to do. I mean, he gave you those talents and ideas for a reason, not just to make a paycheck.
Yeah. What is, somebody would ask me, or, what's my purpose or destiny? And it's this, pie in the sky kind of like the Lord needs to part the Red Sea and then the answer's at the other side. And I think, there's something that's so true what you just said, to be able to go, hey, what just turns your crank? You know what I mean? What do you get fired up about? What are you excited about? What are you already good at?
Yeah.
What talents have you developed? And how, let's think creatively around that, you know? And so immediately when Pastor Gary talked about that, I was like, oh man, I'm so glad that's an encouragement, because, I've, one of the things that I really enjoy to do is coach football with my sons. And, man, I'm doing that on purpose.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not just showing up to that thing going, I'm going to relive glory days or anything like that. The sense is, man, there's an opportunity here for a bunch of people I don't know, and I get to know. And I think the other thing that really popped up for me when thinking about the mission part was, if you're a Christian, you should know and interact regularly with people who aren't Christians.
Yeah.
Right? And it is easy. And I find myself, as a pastor, kids go to a Christian school. I'm at the school, I'm at the church all the time.
Yeah.
It's easy to kind of isolate yourself that way. And it's not a club, but I think it's an encouragement to go, hey, if that's the case for you, if you don't know people who don't know Jesus, I'm not sure I think the Lord would have something else for you in that.
Right. Yeah.
I think your purpose in this world would be to spread his love in real practical ways. It doesn't mean you have to be a preacher at your job, but it does mean you show the light of Christ in real practical ways. And that's not a hard thing to find.
Yeah. I was just talking to Neil, who plays piano for us on Sunday. He was talking about how he was selling a car. And a lot of times the cars that he sells, he sets the radio dial to one of the Christian radios. Yeah. And so he'll have people sit in there and then he'll turn it on. He's like just trying to get the experience kind of thing. But he says he gets a chance to share, his faith a lot by doing that. And also by telling them, he said to one couple, we'll just go home, pray about it. And, and he's like, I just said that out loud. Like I just told these people that may not be Christian to be praying about it.
So awesome.
And they ask him like, what are you talking about praying about it? And he got to share his faith with them. And I think that's just kind of a cool thing to see those kind of, connections happening in your job. And he sells cars. And yet he's able to do something for the kingdom in that regard. Awesome. And he feels fulfilled. He feels like he's doing what God wants him to do. And I think it's a really cool thing when you begin to start seeing that happen. And the
way you treat your waitress.
Yes.
The way, like church, please be good tippers.
Yeah, right. Just don't give them a track. That's not enough.
No, if you're having dinner after church, like lunch, odds are those folks know that that's the church crew, right?
Right.
Tip well. Yeah. Be really polite. If they screw it up, be so gracious.
Yeah.
Please, please, please do those things.
Don't turn into Chef Ramsay.
Right. Yeah. No. And I mean, we hear all the time from Pastor Gary, just the example of going to the garage sale or standing in line at the grocery store. Like I do think there's just this sense, man, of like, you remember the what was that? The Sims. You remember the Sims? Like the show? They have the little diamond above their head, the game, whatever. As a Christian, you've got that flame above your head.
Right,
like you got the Holy Spirit flame above you. Utilize it, man.
Yeah.
Like it and it can be fun. Like it does. Again, I think I'm probably a lot like you in the sense of like I get a little like, I don't know what you could call it, like shy or whatever. I don't know, but like am I gonna give this person the Romans Road talk? And I don't know, maybe, right? Yeah. But the at least thing I can do is be polite and have an encouraging word and say God bless, or look for that open window to just be an encouragement to somebody and kind. To tell that bagger at the grocery store, you're doing a great job. I really appreciate what you're doing for me. Because again, odds are they probably know,
something's going on.
Yeah, they probably have had people be real jerks to them too. So just looking for real practical ways to be kind and show love and grace and
I'm with you. I'm not. Yeah, my personality is in general is not very
right.
I mean, I could sit in a room by myself and be quiet, not have to talk to anybody, and that's in a normal situation.
Sure.
For me, a lot of times when it's a moment where God wants to use me to do something, I'm being pushed.
Yeah. The one I've noticed, this is the best, right? Because I see a lot of harbor lighters at Starbucks.
Oh yeah.
At D&W, and the best is those people treat those ladies who work and make their coffee the best.
Oh yeah.
They're so good. I'm just so proud of our church. Like I'll see that and go, man, I just believe that those people are all getting saved and they know exactly where these folks go to church. And but it's so fun, it's like that little stuff of like knowing and seeing, does your mission have to be this new undertaking? Maybe it is. Maybe you do join the Salvation Army, food distribution thing. Maybe it is that, but maybe also it's you just view everyday interactions in a way that's different, and that's probably something we all grew up with. And that's not new information, but we need to be reminded of it. I know I need to be reminded of it.
Well, you can, one thing that I do a lot is like when people acknowledge success that I have, or they acknowledge something I've done well. I give God the glory for it.
Right.
I mean, at least I'm going to do that much.
Sure.
At least I'm going to make sure, and then sometimes open a conversation. But evangelism has never been my strong suit.
No, I hear you.
But it's not like God can't use it anyways. Right. I mean, because most of my time when I try to minister to people, it's usually in the quiet silence. Nobody knows. You know, I just don't know. I just have it's just personality. I try to get out there, and I'm a lot better than what I was when I started. But I have no problems getting in a pulpit and preaching. I have no problem doing that kind of stuff. Yeah. But when it comes to just one-on-one conversation, I just don't know what to say. It's always like a first date.
Right.
It's like, what do I tell you?
Well, and I think it's different when someone says to you, right, like I see you meeting with people plenty of times in your office, and I think in that circumstance it's probably there, right? But it's that, you know, I love Michael Murray, and he's always, you know, you just hear his stories of just, I was working with a guy the other day, and I just was able to share the Lord, and he accepted the Lord that weekend.
I know. It's like, okay, well, that's pretty good,
right?
Yeah.
And again, I mean, it's not. There's never any shame associated with, well, you don't have that gift, right?
Yeah,
so it's not that, but I think at least being open to the fact of, hey, the way you treat people matters when they're watching, and you can show the Holy Spirit even then. And I do think there is a time where you will need to give an account, right?
Yeah,
I think that that's true too. So looking for it, being discerning, and go, am I being a weirdo, or am I being Holy Spirit filled here?
I like the scripture that says, you know, be like you just said, if somebody asks you, be ready for an answer. Okay, I'm there. I can do that.
You can do that.
You want to ask me, I'm good.
I'm not being the weirdo.
Yeah, I'm not going knocking on doors and saying, hey, do you know my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ?
Right.
But I do. I am always ready to answer. But
can it be? And don't you think the sense too, like it can be fun,
right?
Right. Like I think there's an aspect of that I just appreciate about Pastor Gary is like the Christian life's fun.
Yeah.
You know I think we sort of do that. It's, you know, you're gonna be persecuted and all that stuff. Where, man, folks, like I just chill on the persecution thing this side of the ocean. Like we're okay. We're doing. I mean, I get that things are different and change a little bit, but have an attitude of joy, right? Have an attitude of just, you know, that if the room is negative, I'm not going to be.
Right,
you know? And I think you see that in Pastor Gary a lot, and that's super encouraging to me to go be the person who is going to kind of see things differently. And again, is that service in itself? I don't know, but I do think it starts it. It starts it.
It starts it. Yep. And I think it's good. I mean, you got people like that, but I mean, just like the body has different parts.
Right.
Yeah. I'm always the one that's in the shoe.
Right.
Yeah. You know I'm there.
Right.
I just
Yeah. So it's the question of, you know, how are you serving?
Yeah.
And what's your mission? Was that the language that PG used?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how are you serving and quantifying that, kind of qualifying that within the church, and then your mission is outside the walls, right?
Yeah.
So that's a good question to ponder this week.
It is.
Yeah.
And he talked about washing feet. A lot of feet talk.
That's all you, man.
That's right down my alley. I was so excited. Oh my gosh. It was so funny. Just a little side note. Did you hear the second service when he said, talking about the feet, and he says, I need to get a t-shirt that says I love feet, and then people are like, what?
Yeah. No, you do not.
No, don't do that. I mean, the context you're saying it's fine. But when you walk around the streets of Petoskey and somebody reads that, it's not going to be the same thing.
Different day.
Yeah, it's going to be a different, it's going to be taken totally different. So don't make that t-shirt.
Oh my goodness.
I was laughing so hard when he said that. I'm like,
PG, that's
I know what he meant.
Yeah.
But I don't think you should make a t-shirt and walk around. Don't do that. Yeah.
No.
Well, that's about all the time we have. So we've got, let's see, this Sunday, I'll be doing one of those. I'll be doing the service.
Let's go.
We won't be talking about feet.
But feet talk.
We'll be talking about a lot of other different things.
Good, man.
Talking about how it changes us.
Yeah.
How does serving change me as a person? So we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
So do we have a bass player for Sunday? Because I know I was slated for it.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, good.
I'm playing drums.
Are you for real?
Yeah.
Who's leading?
It's going to be a surprise.
Oh, okay.
No, we have leaders. We do. We have awesome leaders here.
This is going to be really good.
I know. I'm excited to play.
People are going to be like, what happened?
Man.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
Are you ready for that?
It's been a minute since I played drums, so I've been practicing hard.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm excited.
Playing with tracks, though.
I know. It's different.
It's totally different.
It's different. Click in your ears. So it's going to be great.
All right. We'll see you next week. Again, just, if anybody asks you, what do you do in your spare time? You just tell them I listen to more podcasts.
That's right. That's right.
And,
send them our way.
Yeah, and help them find it, because apparently, if you don't have...
Sometimes people are a little technology challenged, like myself. I fully admit it. But this is an easy one, folks. Get them to more.
Get into more podcasts. Talk to you later.
We want you to know, find, discover, change with us. More podcast ending transmission. Now.